So here, as this is a Lador Vador service, a multi-generational service, our tradition has been for many years that instead of offering a sermon as the point of talking in the service, we will instead offer a story. And stories, I think everyone knows, really are the first language that Judaism ever spoke. Before it spoke the language of scholarship, before it spoke any sort of academic or intellectual language, it spoke the language of story. And so tonight, before we turn to the story, which I'll have to be loud for, I want to invite you to think about your gifts. What are your God-given gifts? And I want you to invite to think about what they are and how you offer them to the world around you. And so in this spirit, a story. There was once a man who lived a life of incredible kindness and generosity. He looked upon every bit of his fortune as a gift from God, and he shared it with everyone who was in need. So good was his life, in fact, that when he passed away, it was actually decreed in heaven that each of his 3 sons should receive the one wish of their heart as a reward for their father's kindness. Elijah the prophet was dispatched to offer each of his children their wish. So he arrived at the oldest child, the oldest brother, and offered him any wish of his heart. And the young man knew exactly for what he would wish, and he said, without wasting a moment, what I want most in the world is wealth and power and respect. I want to be the most important person in all the land. And Elijah said, it is done. And so upon arriving home, the eldest brother found an old boot on his doorstep. And as he was about to throw the boot away, he happened to look down in it, and he saw that it was in fact filled with gold coins. He took the boot into his tiny home, and he spilled the coins onto his bed, thrilled at the fortune he had found. And as soon as he spilled all of those coins out, wouldn't you know it, the boot filled up again with gold coins. Has that ever happened to any of you? Me neither. But this happened to this eldest brother. And so it was that he became the wealthiest man in all the land. He built a great mansion. He built up his businesses. The people of the town sought him out for wisdom and advice, and soon he was elected mayor. He was honored as the most important man in all of the land, just as he had wished for. So Elijah approached the second brother and offered him his wish. The second brother reflected for a moment and answered, I've always sought wisdom and understanding and knowledge. I've always wanted to know all the answers to every great question there is. That is my wish. Teach me the answers, the secrets to all the world's questions. I wish to be the wisest, most learned person in all the land. It is done, Elijah said. And upon arriving home, the second brother found a package wrapped in plain paper and twine. He brought it inside, unwrapped it, and he found an old leather book. He began to read the book and discovered in it all the answers to all the questions he had ever asked. And anytime he arrived at a new question, he found a new chapter in the book that answered that question. Soon he was the wisest, the most learned person in all the land, just as he had wished. Finally, Elijah went to the home of the youngest child. This one welcomed him warmly, invited him into his home, and prepared a cup of tea for him. Elijah offered him any wish of his heart. The young man shook his head. He thought for a moment, and at last he said, I really have everything I could need. I don't need a thing. I have no wish except to be happy in my life. Very well, it is done, Elijah said. What is done? What did I wish for? He said. And that evening, as he sat down to his supper, there was a knock at his door. There stood an older man. Dear sir, I'm sorry to bother you. We are travelers. Our wagon has broken its wheel. It will certainly take some time to repair. May we stay in your barn with you until the wagon can be fixed? And the youngest brother said, "It is too cold to stay in the barn. Come into my house. You must be hungry. Sit with me at my table. Share my supper. Tomorrow we'll see about fixing your wagon. Tonight you'll stay here. How many are with you?" "Just two, my granddaughter who accompanies me and I." That night the grandfather and granddaughter shared supper with the youngest brother. After the meal they sipped tea. They shared stories of travels and books and found great comfort in each other. The next day the youngest brother set out to repair the broken wagon wheel, but he ran out of time before he could finish it entirely, so the old man and his granddaughter stayed another evening in his home. They shared another fine supper and an evening of wonderful stories. And again, the next day, he went to fix the wagon, but he wasn't able to complete it and ran out of time. Soon enough, after this had gone on for a period of time, the youngest brother and the stranger's granddaughter felt close and connected to each other, and eventually they fell in love. And so it turned out that the youngest brother was the happiest in all the land, just as he had wished to be. All three brothers received their wishes, but did they use them in the way their father had taught them? Their father was kind, generous, and good. He recognized that his fortune was a gift from God, and he graciously shared everything he had. Would his sons use their gifts in the same way? Elijah the prophet was dispatched to find out. He came to the eldest brother disguised, as he often would, as a poor beggar. "Please, sir, a few pennies for bread. It is said you are the wealthiest, most important man in all the land. God has blessed you with so very much." "Get away from me, you filthy creature. I worked hard for my fortune. Go earn your own." At that, Elijah removed his disguise. "You worked hard for your fortune? It wasn't your work, but your father's generosity and kindness that earned you your fortune. He fed every person who came to his door. You have not learned from his kindness. You do not understand that wealth is a gift to be shared. Your fortune will now be lost." At that, the brother ran home to find his boot, filled with gold coins as it always was, but when he emptied it, the boot did not fill back up again. His foolish selfishness had caught up with him. Those who had respected him, or so he thought before, turned their backs on him, and he returned to the way he had been before receiving his gift. Then, disguised as a poor student, Elijah visited the second brother. "Please, sir, teach me. It is said that you are the wisest, most learned in all the land. God has blessed you with so much knowledge. Could you spare a few moments to teach a poor student who only seeks the truth?" "Get away from me, you ignorant creature. Can't you see that I have no time for your foolishness? I have worked so hard to earn my wisdom. Why should I share what I know with you?" At that, Elijah removed his disguise. "You worked hard to earn your wisdom. What do you know? Your father shared his wisdom generously. He never failed to share his time. He taught anyone who came to seek understanding. But you have not learned his lessons of kindness. Your learning will soon be lost." And so the second brother ran home to find his magic book, but as soon as he opened it, the pages were now blank. Soon his selfish foolishness caught up with him, and he eventually forgot everything he had thought he learned. Finally, Elijah visited the youngest brother, this time disguised as a traveler. He knocked on the door one night as the family was sitting down to supper. "Sir, I'm so sorry to bother you. My wagon wheel is broken. May I trouble you to stay in your barn until the wagon can be fixed?" "No," he said. Elijah feared the worst, but he continued, "Not in the barn. Come into our home. You must be hungry. Sit with us at our table and share our supper. Tomorrow we'll see about fixing your wagon, but tonight spend it with me and my family." Sitting beside the youngest brother's wife and her grandfather, the youngest brother recited the blessing. "Let us thank God for all the gifts that are ours, for the bread we eat, for the love we share, for this warm home, for our guest who has come to share our meal, for the happiness that God has brought. Blessed is God who brings forth bread from the earth. At that, Elijah removed his disguise. He said, "You have learned all the lessons your fathers taught. All his kindness, wisdom, and generosity, these are now yours. There it has been decreed that the gifts that your brothers wasted, they shall be yours too." And so they were. This is an old story, an ancient one as it happens. The Elijah tales are some of our oldest stories in our tradition. They come to offer us some of our tradition's deepest truths. This week's Torah portion is the Torah portion where we learn about the tabernacle, the sacred sanctuary that our ancestors were instructed to build, which would connect them to God throughout their wanderings in the desert. It was what allowed them to feel close and safe and loved no matter where they went. The tabernacle is constructed based on voluntary gifts of the heart. And the Torah tells us that God said to the people, "Anyone whose heart so moves them, let them bring me gifts, and from these gifts we will build the tabernacle." And once the tabernacle is built, it comes to say, "As they have built me this tabernacle, this sanctuary of the heart, now I will dwell among them." So many people spend all of their life seeking to find happiness, fulfillment, something to fill a void that they feel. And often they are misdirected into thinking that the way to fill the void is by taking, consuming. But our tradition teaches that the deepest truth is the way we fill the voids in our souls is not by reaching out to bring into ourselves, but rather by reaching in and giving out of ourselves. Gifts that are given from free will, from the heart. These not only satisfy others and fulfill our greatest purpose, but they fill us too. May it be so for all of us on this Shabbat Terumah, a Shabbat that invites us to bring open hearts and share our gifts in the most generous of ways.